My name is Larson, and I'm Professor of English and Creative Writing here at Hamilton College. Over the 6 weeks of this course, we will be reading and discussing the prison in America from a perspective rarely considered in public debates about criminal justice or even about prisons, from those on the receiving end of legalized punishment. As most of you probably know, ours is the largest prison system on earth. It dwarfs in scale the rates of incarcerations in nations we typically consider our peers, and it stands well beyond the incarceration rates of nations whose records of human rights violations we regularly condemn. We will cover what social scientists, historians, and legal scholars have written about our mass incarceration complex, but our primary focus will be what has been written by those who know best what the prison is and what it does, those living inside it. So how, you might wonder, did an English professor come to this subject? In 2006, I was offered the chance to initiate a creative writing workshop inside Attica Correctional Facility, the site of the prisoner uprising and the massacre of both prisoners and guards by New York State troopers. Just a few steps from D-Yard, where prisoners held control and negotiated with their demands with journalists, prison officials, and state lawmakers for 4 days in September 1971, I sat with 13 men, all serving 20 to 25 to life sentences for violent crimes. Among them, I found not the monsters and predators that popular media, including for-profit news outlets, would have us believe fill our prisons. I found men who every day carried the full weight of the souls they have taken, men who 24/7, over decades, have watched the passion plays of right and wrong that are acted out at every moment inside an institution where the final power of the state over individual citizens is turned into concrete and steel, into nightsticks, chains, and beatings. I found men who, amid that experience and with full knowledge that writing about it might bring harm to the lives they had managed to cut out of that merciless environment, still insisted on bearing witness to the world they inhabit. The self-reflection required to remake oneself after having carried out one's most terrible act, the experience they acquired, and the courage, good humor, and commitment they demonstrated to me in their writing efforts instilled in me as a teacher and literary critic a deep need to know whether these men were singular exceptions or representative of larger phenomena inside our prisons. This course will answer that question. We will review the birth of the penitentiary from the genius of our nation's founders and follow its wayward history, from faith in the dignity and capacity for redemption of every American through its fusion with the legacy of slavery. We will read the literary canon that has grown from the prison, particularly in the 20th century, including the work witnessing the explosive expansion of the prison from a last resort into the default answer to a host of social problems. And we will read what imprisoned people are writing today, when we depend on the prison much less for the safety than for the jobs it provides. In this course, we will look very broadly at where we stand and how we got here. We will try to understand why reading the witness coming from our prisons is crucial to understanding whether we can honestly claim to be a nation of laws or a nation where some enjoy not only protection by the law, but protection from the law, while others enjoy neither. We begin with where things stand at this moment. The U.S. today incarcerates a greater number and percentage of its own citizens than any other nation on earth, greater than China, Russia, Cuba, or Iran, and 10 times greater than many Western European countries. From among 5% of the Earth's population, the U.S. locks up 25% of the world's incarcerated people. This is in large part because over the past 40 years, American prisons have become overfilled with nonviolent drug users and sellers. Prison administration has abandoned the mission of correction and rehabilitation, and a prison record today renders the more than 700,000 men and women released from prison each year virtually persona non grata among employers, landlords, and even the social service providers that might help them to rebuild productive, law-abiding lives. The result is a rate of return to prison of 65% within 3 years of release and 75% within 5 years of release. What this also means is social and political marginalization for the 7 million Americans marked by probation, jail, prison, and parole, and pre-marking over 2 million children of incarcerated people. The result of mass incarceration is one of the world's largest state-run systems for the recycling of human misery. But it was not always this way. First conceived by the same generations of men and women who gave us the U.S. Declaration of Independence and Constitution, the idea of the penitentiary was one of the most revolutionary and transformative declarations for the dignity of human beings to echo from the political genius of the nation's founders. The penitentiary was conceived as a place where criminals would be contained not in order to torture their bodies, but to allow them to reflect upon their crimes and find release with the discovery of penitence. From all across Europe, government representatives, writers, and social critics came to tour and study and assess this new idea for humanely addressing the problem of crime. Few other American institutions have caught on, let alone been reproduced in steel and concrete so broadly and quickly as the prison. In its most optimistic, revolutionary passions, the prison sought to replace public execution, exile, shaming, torture, and humiliation with the faith that human beings, given enough time and solitude in which to reflect upon their unlawful acts, would be won over by the natural blessings of conscience and thus seek penitence. Sadly, that optimism only rarely and briefly found the resources, professional expertise, and public goodwill and support to deliver on its promise. And from its beginnings, this hopeful plan to respect and foster the dignity of all citizens was arguably doomed by America's deeply entrenched history of racial inequality and the inequality of class that is greater today than at any time in our history. We will review this history, its ambitions, challenges, and failures in order better to understand and appreciate what incarcerated Americans are telling us about mass-scale incarceration today. In American Prison Witness, I hope to help you to some appreciation of the literature that has come from the hands of U.S. prisoners and what it can tell us about America, its prisons, and the rough path we walk in pursuing even our best ideas. American Prison Witness constitutes a literature already many times larger than the entire Canada of slave and native genocide narrative, and it continues to grow today, providing a little appreciated reality check on how successfully our ideals regarding human and civil rights, justice, and the rule of law are translated into practice. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to our time together. I hope that by the end of this course you will more deeply appreciate your own freedom, better understand its full financial and human costs, and come to value the critical social, aesthetic, and moral capital we hold locked in cages.